pause, but I just want to move over to get my notes there. Okay, are you ready?
I am ready.
You're still ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm so excited to chat today with Mike Halpern, CEO of Franchise Freeway, who is an expert franchise consultant with years of experience helping entrepreneurs navigate the world of franchise ownership. Today, I'm going to ask Mike some questions about his world in franchising that may be helpful for anyone who's interested in learning more about franchising and the process from a consultant's perspective. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today.
Joanne, thank you so much for having me on this Schooley Mitchell Franchise Business Podcast. Very happy to be here.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, well, if you are ready, we will just jump right in if that's okay with you.
That is okay with me.
Perfect, perfect. Well, why don't we just start? You just tell me a little bit about your background and what inspired you to be a franchise consultant.
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been in franchising my entire career. So let's get in a time machine and go way back to 2001. I got my first job in franchising with an FSO, a franchise sales organization called FranSmart. And I worked there for 5 years, from 2001 to 2006. And our big claim to fame was Five Guys Burgers. So that was a chain that only had 4 restaurants at the time in Northern Virginia, where I live. And over a 10 to 15 year time horizon, it became a 1,500 unit chain all over the world. And I got hooked on the franchise model. So the last paycheck, so I was there till 2006. And that's when I decided to leave and start my own business. So that's when I took my leap into entrepreneurship. So the last paycheck I received was in June of 2006, which happens to be 3 months before my very first son, Jackson, was born. So I was taking a big risk. I'm like, I got this new kid on the way and I'm going to start my own business. So that was, I talked to my candidates a lot about that because I went through it myself. So, Joanne, I've been self-employed from 2006 to 2020. So for 14 years, I ran my business, primarily helping early stage restaurant independent businesses become franchise systems. So I kind of became a small FSO myself, and I would kind of quarterback the whole effort and help them create their FDD, create all the tools and the systems they need to go from what made them successful as an independent, but package it up as a franchise system, and then help them recruit franchisees. So I spent most of my career on the kind of franchisor side. And then in 2020, when pandemic hit, I realized that I need to have a little more flexibility, and I switched over to kind of buy side advisory agencies. So yeah, franchising has been my whole career, and really the short answer to that long-winded answer is that I really enjoy helping people, and in this position, I get to help everyone navigate this large landscape of options out there. 4,000 franchises. How do you know which one's right for you? So that's how I got into franchise consulting.
Amazing. And it's just so great that you had that experience that you can, life experience or career experience that you can share, with others as they go through the process. So that's so great to hear. All right. So another question coming your way. So when working with clients, what is your process for understanding their goals, skills, and financial needs before recommending any particular franchise?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think number one is listening to them, because I take really good notes, or as best I can. And nowadays there's great AI tools that can kind of supplement my own note taking. So I can go back and look at a summary of a conversation I have with a candidate. But the essence is figuring out their why. Why are they interested in franchise ownership? If it's a really great why, I can be of service. I can jump in and do my thing. But even taking a step back, like I really try to determine if business ownership is right for them, because some people just aren't cut out for it. And, so that's something I want to address, quickly is, why do you want to own a business? And then franchising, there's a difference between owning an independent business and owning a franchise. So I try to explain the difference if they don't know, and let them decide if they want to explore, franchising. But, going back to your question about kind of funding, like that's a hugely important piece of the initial consultation is, what is our funding strategy? I don't want to get too far down the road of looking at categories, brands, none of that. It all starts with what are your capabilities? What is your comfort level? And how do we put a strategy in place to get you there? Some people are ready to go. Maybe they're a cash buyer and they're not going to need financing, and maybe they do need financing. Maybe they need a partner. Maybe they have to repair their credit. So really understanding that is the core of the foundation of the consultative approach. And then, then it becomes like, once we get past that and we understand the financial piece, I try to eliminate categories that they don't want to be in. Maybe they don't want to be in the restaurant space, or they don't want to be in the printing space, or whatever it is. The one thing I found that's really interesting in the past 5 years that I've been a full-time consultant is, when I did the restaurant work for 20 years, everyone came to me for restaurants and I placed them in restaurants. It was pretty, apples to apples. In this, I found that some people come to me for one industry category, and then after we look at some other things, they do a complete pivot and they look at something that is, totally different than what they originally came to me for.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of it's just listening and open communication to be able to formulate a game plan for each individual, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no two people are the same, and I don't treat my approach the same. I really want to listen and figure out what's important to them. What do they want to get out of this conversation?
Yeah, that's great. So when you're evaluating franchises for your clients, what criteria is most important to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Anyone could get on the internet and see that there's 3,000 to 4,000 franchises that register an
A
FDD
lot.
every year. It's a lot, right? It's like, how do you navigate all of that? And even, a subset of that, the network that I'm in, which is FranServe, we have access to about 800 of those brands. And in addition to that, I have independent agreements with select brands that I really like and want to work with. So, I really want to work with brands that I've placed my clients before, and I can directly, ask them how they're doing. Like, Joanne, you and I worked together on a placement with my friend Rob, who invested in a Schoolie Mitchell franchise in Texas. And I can call Rob up and say, hey, how was training? How's your support? How are you doing? What would you do differently? And I can even connect my candidates with someone that's in the system. That validation is hugely important to people that are exploring different options. But what I do is I travel the country. I go to these events that are called consultant discovery days. So kind of like when a candidate goes to kick the tires on a brand, I do the same thing. I invest my time to go meet with the executive and leadership teams of different brands, go to their training facilities, meet their leadership, understand their systems, kind of look under the hood a little bit, and make sure that I'm comfortable recommending them to my candidates. So in addition to that, I'm a big proponent of collaboration. So like within my own network, I'm in two groups. One I call an accountability group that I was invited to about 2 years ago. And every Friday, I get in touch with 3 other consultants from around the country. And all we talk about are brands that we've introduced our clients to that previous week and why. And I come across some great brands that I would have not known about had a trusted colleague not have said, hey, Mike, you really need to look at this brand. It's really interesting. My clients are investing in it. They're happy, etc. And then I have another group we call a power team, where every 2 weeks I get together with another group of about 7 consultants, and we just talk about our business. We talk about problems, challenges, solutions. And I come across really good brands there as well. And really, some of the most important takeaways are brands to avoid because they have, bad leadership, or their economics are trending downward, or there's just something that is negative about the brand that I shouldn't be presenting it to my clients. So that's the value that I think any consultant brings to the table, is their deep knowledge and expertise of the space, so that you can help clients avoid mistakes and kind of, navigate them towards brands that are great. And ultimately, the candidate decides what they want to do with your guidance.
Yeah, for sure. Well, clearly you spend a lot of time dedicated to educating yourself so that you can come to that place of confidence for yourself to communicate to your own clients. So no, that's fantastic. Perfect.
Hmm.
Do you have any examples of challenging client placement, and then sort of explain what you did to work through it to find a good franchise fit in the end?
Um, hey, Joanne, ask me that question one more time. I just kind of lost my track here in my
Yeah,
notes. Um, Give me one
when you're
second.
ready.
Okay, you were asking about was it a challenging
Challenging.
client placement?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, if you can ask me that one again, I'm ready to go.
Oh, yeah. No worries at all. Um, Mike, do you have an example of a challenging client placement, and just share what you did to work through it to find a good franchise fit in the end?
Another great question, Joanne. I had two placements I made recently that I would call challenging, and really not challenging because of the candidate, challenging because of the situation. So, I had a, a gentleman in New York who was looking at an exterior services business, and it was a resale. So this was an operating, established, cash flow positive franchise resale, and my client put in a really good offer, and he just could not come to terms with the seller. They were off by about 100,000, and neither of them wanted to move their position. So, he had a tough choice to make. He's like, I really like this business, but he happened to live about maybe an hour from the location, because at the time he was a New York resident and the brand wasn't registered in the state of New York.
Right.
However, during that negotiation with the owner, happened to be in New Jersey. Excuse me. The registration went through, and the franchise was able to offer him new territory in his backyard where he lived, where his community was, and he could get in for about a third of the price of buying the resale if he was to buy the equipment and launch the franchise as a new turf. And that's exactly what we did. We said, look, side by side, you can pay what you think is a price that's above market for this existing business that's an hour away, or we can pivot to something in your backyard. The challenge there is you're going to have to build it. So you're not going to cash flow from the moment you start. So that's one example. And then I recently did a placement in Virginia, very similar situation, but my candidate put in an offer on an existing cash flow positive residential painting resale, and he got beat out by another offer, and the seller took the other candidate's offer. But we had one new territory available. It was about 30 minutes from where he lived, and he ended up pivoting there. So, it's funny, sometimes people come to me and say, I only want a resale, or I only want to establish something new. But at the end of
Mhm.
the day, sometimes they realize over time that maybe the other option might be really interesting for them, and that's what happened in both of these cases.
For sure. And I think clearly that's an example of why it's so great to work with an experienced consultant like yourself, so that you can provide extra options or a new game plan, uh, just to keep things moving for everyone. So, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And here's another one, just in regards to financial situations or business backgrounds. How do you tailor your approach to work with these different kind of scenarios?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Everyone comes with a different set of financial background, different
Mm,
liquidity, different net worth, different credit. I think, that's where like our relationship with our funding specialists really come into play, because I just want to make sure that whatever business we look at, my candidate is prepared. They understand what they have to risk in order to get the loan, whether it's a personal guarantee or they have to get a lien on a piece of property if they want to do a home equity line or something like that. So, if it's a cash buyer, that's one thing, but the majority of people like to use leverage. So, I refer them right away to a phenomenal funding specialist that can talk about SBA products. They can talk about home equity lines. They can talk about rollover for business startup where you're leveraging some are all of your 401k to kind of put it into a C corporation that invests in the business. There's business lines of credit. There's just a lot of ways to fund a business, but understanding those options up front and understanding your capabilities makes a lot of sense. Like, if sometimes I liken what we do to a realtor that's on the buy side, helping someone find a piece of property. You wouldn't go looking at $1 million homes if the
Mhm.
pre-approval was 200,000. You'd show them homes that are within their price range. Same thing in franchising. You want to make sure that we fully understand their capabilities and their comfort level. And then at that point, we can then narrow it down to brands that kind of fit there. So, and on the background side, you asked a good question about backgrounds. Franchisors are looking for characteristics. They
Mhm.
want behaviors that sometimes can't be taught. So, does the candidate or the new franchise owner have grit, determination? Can they solve problems?
Yeah.
Do they collaborate? Are they willing to accept help and guidance? Like if you're a painting franchise, franchisors aren't looking for painters or technicians in the field. They want business owners, someone that could manage people, interface with clients, build teams, things like that. So, yeah, background does matter for sure, but it doesn't necessarily exclude people from entering an industry. And I have that conversation with a lot of people because they pigeonhole themselves into one thing. It's like, no, you don't have to just do this one thing because that's what you know. Franchising provides you with a playbook and a blueprint and a collaborative network of peers that can help you achieve your goals, within ownership. So, backgrounds matter, but I don't think it dictates, what you end up doing.
I 100% agree with that. Absolutely. And especially, and around, I should say, around the financial side as well, it is great to get that sort of upfront. And then you have that out of the way to have the confidence and focus to continue learning about the model itself. So,
Yeah.
those are excellent strategies for sure. Next question is really great because I just love if you could just share a story of a particular client that you found, chose the right business for them and has found great success. It must just make you so proud to know, that you played a part in helping someone fulfill their dream of getting into business for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we spend 90 days plus helping people, figure out their plan. So once you make a placement and it's a good match and they're successful, it's definitely fulfilling. The candidate, the new franchisee, they're doing all the hard work. But yeah, recently I placed two different groups. One was a father-son. The son was just graduating high school, and the father was like, he doesn't want to go to college. He's
Mhm.
outgoing, he's ambitious, he wants to get into business, and I want to support that. So he invested in a digital media business, and right out of school, he jumped right in, and they're doing really well. I also had a father-daughter that got into a kind of a window covering business, and they wanted to build a family business together, but they wanted the guardrails and the safety of having conformity within a franchise model so they could kind of work together. So I love that. I love helping people get into a family business. And those are two examples of people I recently worked with.
For sure. I'm hearing more and more about family businesses, people coming together in family businesses. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic. What do you think are the most common misconceptions clients have about franchising? Sort of how do you, manage those concerns?
Yeah, I'd say the first one is everyone thinks that it's just fast food. It's Chick-fil-A, it's
Right.
McDonald's, it's Tim Hortons up in your neck of the woods. But the reality is there's 30 plus industry categories all over the place from, B2B services like you do at Schoolie Mitchell. There's printing, there's home services, there's fitness, there's personal care. The list goes on and on. So I think once people realize that franchising is just a business format and pretty much any industry category can plug in, it kind of opens up their eyes like, hey, maybe I can find something that's, for me. So I think, yeah, they just have to shift their mindset a little bit and realize that, it's not just about, one specific restaurant category. And the other piece is, the expense. Like people think that, oh man, you have to be rich to get into a franchise. You have to be a millionaire to be a franchisee. That's definitely not true. There are
Mhm.
low cost franchises you can get into for, 50,000, sometimes less, certainly in that 50,000 to 200,000 range, where you can get an SBA Express loan and only put in 10%, and leverage 90%, government backed, bank financing, like here in the States. It's pretty cool. So I think that whole idea that, okay, if I'm believe enough in the brand and myself, I can take a little bit of a risk and not have to, take $1 million loan to get into business.
Yeah, for sure. It's true. I think that's a huge one with franchising is fast food only. When in truth, there's so many different options, and that's the value of working with a consultant, so that you can educate yourself to find out all these opportunities. So amazing.
Why
Well,
we're here, Joanne. That's what we
that's
do.
that's what we do, and we love it. Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining me today and sharing all your insights. I know this actually will be very helpful and valuable information to anybody who is interested in learning more about franchising, business ownership, as well as, it's great for people to see a little bit of perspective as to what it's like to be a franchise consultant. So thanks again. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, Joanne, thanks so much for having me. And for anyone that's interested, you'll see on my logo here, I have a podcast called The Franchise QB. You can check it out at youtube.com/at franchise QB. So you can check that out. I have 73 episodes currently. So I interview franchisees, franchisors, and vendors. And I interviewed Dennis Schooley, founder and CEO
Mhm.
of Schooley Mitchell, recently. It was a great conversation. Really brilliant guy, and really a great conversationalist.
Yeah, that one was great. Amazing. Well, thanks, Mike.
Thank
Thanks
you so
again.
much, Joanne. Take care.
You're welcome. You too.